Oh my goodness, there's such good community at the village for all of the villagers, the people who live there. And I think that it's really a community, it's a very positive community.
Hi, I'm Agnes Stowicki, Managing Editor with Comfort Life. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading retirement communities and care providers to uncover insights to community lifestyle, care, culture, and leadership. This includes insights from residents, family members, and administration. This is the Comfort Life Insider Perspective.
The village is a very unique community. It's one that we know is rare for North America even. So we know the history of the community, and just knowing that it's specifically tailored for someone like my mom that really needed that kind of place. I think it was a no-brainer for us. It was just a perfect match. It was overall, it was very good. I think we had to make some just adjustments like anybody moving to a new place, but the staff was very helpful. And I think that they told us when my mom moved in that likely she would have a bit of a decline. And for us, it was the opposite. She just seemed to settle in and it was such a peaceful experience for her for the most part. You know, there were some, of course, adjustments, but overall it was great. Oh my goodness, there's such good community at the village for all of the villagers, the people who live there. And I think that it's really a community, it's a very positive community. The staff are very helpful, they're very friendly, they're very positive, and it's just designed to be a community. Like that's the whole point of the village is that it's meant to be a community of people that have specific care needs, but that want to live full and rich lives that they can. And I think that the village really delivers that. I think that a lot of it is just knowing is life is more peaceful because I know my mom's in a safe and caring place. Like that was a big concern for us when she was living at her home, and she was actually living in one care home prior to this, just doing. She required some nursing care before she moved into the village. Before there was a room available for her, it just so happened that she needed that, and that institution, that care home, was great. Like they had a great staff. They did very good work with her, but they're limited by the way that their actual context is laid out. So they have such an institutional sort of standard typical care home, I would say, set up. And so my mom had less freedom to move around, and she had less interaction with people and such. So it wasn't anything that they were deficient in. It's just they couldn't offer the same context and environment. And so we noticed a great improvement in her situation when she moved in. So I think that's we just feel that she's in a safe and caring place, and that's the most important thing for us, that she's well taken care of and that she's going to be safe. Yeah, so for my mom, like it was, she struggles with memory, and memory care is what she needs. And so for us, it wasn't like maybe some people where they see their loved one slip into dementia, where there's a loss of contact with reality. For my mom, her loss of contact with reality has to do with her memory, and your memory is part of how you function every day, right? So she can't remember things in the short term. And she knows that it's very difficult for her. And so I find that she's very aware of the things that are going on around her, and it troubles her. And I think when we got her into the village, she found that it was a familiar. For instance, it's her own bed, it's her own bedroom furniture that she has there, and the setup isn't unlike what she would have experienced back home in her master bedroom with her ensuite and such. And so it felt immediately more at home to her, more familiar. And then I think just having the freedom to move around her space without care of getting lost, or and being able to move and go outside and do all those things that she would be relying on others for. I think it brought a great deal of peace and lessened some of the anxiety and stress that she's been experiencing that since her her stroke 2 years ago. So it's been a journey, and I think that we see in her a much more relaxed individual, somebody that's at home and can feel that sense of home where she is. She doesn't say a lot because she doesn't really connect with it, because my mom's issue is short-term memory. So she doesn't remember being in the hospital, say, after her stroke. She doesn't remember the other care home, or even the time she spent in her own home post-stroke. So I remember touring it with her about a year ago, before, I guess it would be about 6 months before she moved in. And some family members of ours, we took her there, and just to tour it and see what she thought. And her comment was, "This seems like a happy place." And I said to her, "Do you think you could live here?" And she said, "I think I could." And that was a big step. So I think that her perception is in a sense, if you asked her day to day, she'd tell you she's in a good place. I think the one thing I can think of right away that's really helpful for my mom at the village is what I mentioned earlier, is that she's able to go outside and go up to the community center, have a cup of coffee with some of the other residents in her, or villagers in her residence. She can go outside and sit on the deck of the house where she lives. She can venture down to the gardens. She can see the goats from the back of her home, playing in the field. I mean, those are not inconsequential things. Those are important things for people to feel that sense of being able to get outside and be outside. My mom was always a walker. She spent a lot of time gardening. She spent a lot of time sitting outside at her townhome, where she lived for 25 years. And so then to be cooped up inside in an institution with limited access to the outdoors would be difficult for her. So I think that amenity is a massive benefit, the freedom to be outside, getting fresh air, walking around. And I notice when she walks on the main street of the village, she'll say hello to people that are walking there too, almost like it is a village, like you would greet people that live in your neighborhood. And so she's definitely at home, both inside and outside, where she actually lives in the village. So that's a major positive aspect of being there. It feels like a home, yes. I mean, it's troubling that she can't connect more with the fact that that's her home now, in a sense, that she doesn't recall it. It's not always familiar to her. Even when we take her out for the day and come back, it's not quite sure. Like, she connects with some parts of physical parts. There's a statue of a little girl sitting on a bench outside Hawthorne House, and that's her key landmark for that's where I live, because she calls her Amy. So we find Amy and we're home. So there is that sense, yes. But I think the home-like atmosphere, the way it is such a place that caters to the residents' needs, not the institution's needs, is a key element that sold us on moving my mom into the village, and then became very evident that it is that way there. So even little things that they do for the villagers, little adjustments they can make, they'll make it if it helps them, create a better space, a space of community. Yes, I think the staff is very caring at the village. I think I found, for the most part, they're exceptional. They really do a great job with her nursing care, with any medications or conditions or anything that arises with her. They're very much in contact with me, so that's very reassuring. I find that it's just the staff are all seem very authentically. A lot of them, I don't know all of them, but the ones I know seem to be very happy to be working in that context, because I think it is a unique and special place. And so I think that creates a positive environment in and of itself, that it's a beautiful place, that it's a place that's functions very positively in how it's designed. And then the people who are there are very, I find, very, very uplifting. And they seem to be have that sense of being very positive and caring around the residents. And so that's what I've observed since we've been there. I would say that's really important to tour it and ask every question that you might possibly have, because it isn't like most other residences for people that require memory care or assistance. So I think that it's important to go in with a sense of discovery, and just being willing to ask any question that you have. Go and spend some time there. They had events that they like, community type events prior to my mom moving in that they invited us to. So we took advantage of those opportunities, the lighting of the Christmas parade, things like that, the celebration of some events that were occurring at the time before she moved in. So we took her there to start to feel that community out and to become a part of it. And I think that really helped us to see how things were functioning before she moved in. So I think my advice would be take the time to get to know the village before you commit to moving in there so that your expectations are clear and so that you can have questions answered. And I found they were very helpful and very happy to answer any questions that I had. There were, with the move-in, there were a few concerns I had around communication around my mom's care, because as we did her assessment, move-in assessment, we found that she has actually very high cognition for someone moving in there. But her physical needs at the time, she was struggling to move from being recovering from a fall in a wheelchair back into moving into a walker and not being in a walker anymore, or sorry, a wheelchair anymore. So there were some questions about how independent could she be, intense in the sense of she might require additional personal care and such. And so it was a bit of a trying to figure it out. And so there were a couple of occasions where I was concerned about how we were negotiating that situation. But when I had concerns and I made them known, they were immediately and positively addressed. And so we were able to figure out what does she actually need. And so we didn't need to, for example, bring in extra care for her. She was able to function in the house that she's at with the care level that there was there. So it was a bit of a experiment because, as I said, she wasn't sort of a typical fit for the 3 levels of care that they have. So they like to place people more with the level of cognition that is similar to those around them, rather than the level of physical care they may require. So it was a bit tricky to work out where she would best fit. But I found that once there was an opportunity to communicate, and I took that opportunity, I found that the response was solid, really good. So those are comments that I was asked actually early on to meet with the general manager and some of the house manager and after move in, and just to give them some feedback on what I had experienced. And for the most part, it was very positive. But when I did mention to them that there was some sort of misunderstanding around some of the care needs, but that we were able to resolve that, and they were very open to hearing what I had to say. And so I think they're very open to learning because they're not they've only been there since 2019, right? So it's not like they've been there a long time. And so I think that they're very open to seeing, like, learning from all of the experiences that they have. So so I think that there was probably that a little bit of a hiccup there, but otherwise it's been really good. There isn't a prescribed, this is how we do things here. They explain this is how we do things here, but you give us feedback, if there's something your mom needs, if there's some way we can adjust to meet her needs and that works for us as well, then of course they're going to do that, right? You can't expect them to cater individually to everybody because that's a community and we have to live together. But I do find that that is a strength of the village, is that they are groundbreaking in a sense in this area with this kind of care, resident-centered focused care. And I think that that's something I understand that is, as I've read about articles that have been written about the village and news interviews, I've seen that other places are starting to look at them to say, oh, that's working. That's some things are really special there. And maybe we can bring that into other environments. So I think that's really positive. I don't know if I would do anything differently, actually. I think our family did our due diligence in determining what my mom needed and where the best fit for her would be. And that wasn't easy because things were changing in her life. Like after the stroke, there was recovery, then there were setbacks, and aging comes into it. Just normal aging is also a factor for any senior, right? So it was trying to determine what she would need now and the care she might need in the future and where would be the best placement for her. And that was our concern. And so I think that going into it, I don't think that I necessarily would change anything. As a family, we looked at some different options that would work, be possible for my mom, but there was nothing like the village, right? So everything was sort of, once we saw that and what they offered, everything was measured against that. And nothing could compete with what they were offering in terms mostly of that lovely setup they have there that's very home-like, that's very community centered. And I think that once we had determined that, and we actually it made my mom a part of that process, even though we know she wouldn't remember those places that we toured before, including the village, but that we could see her reaction and see her response to them in the moment. And so that was helpful. The other thing that was really great about our situation was within our family, we had really good communication and discussions as family members, and we're able to have well, I would say agreement all along the way in what was best for my mom, and that was really helpful too, to have that good communication within our family about what were my mom's needs and how could we best meet them. And that was the ultimate goal of everything we did for her leading up to the process of finding a home for her at the village. So I can't say that I think look back with regret on any of it, because you're really treading on what would I say, sort of foreign ground. Like, this is all new, right? You don't know what's going to come. That's the problem, right? You don't really have a sense of, okay, I know what's going to happen next week. It's just you have to sort of take it as it comes. And I think that's the great thing about the village is once my mom's in the lowest level of care, and so if she needs more care in the future, then she's able to, if we wish, move through different levels of care right within the same community. So that's very helpful as well. I'm not sure I answered your question, but I'm trying.
Your answer was, "I would do nothing differently, everything's great."
Yeah, it really has been. That's been actually, it's such a stressful situation to walk through a traumatic brain injury and subsequent results of that with an elderly parent and a loved one that you care so much about. And so it's good not to have to deal with a lot of regret on top of that of how things went. I would say trust your instincts. I mean, do all your homework, of course. Find out what is offered, what type of living context there is, what services are offered. Uh, you know, make sure that you try out the channels of communication in advance to make sure that you're feeling like, if I'm communicating with this organization about a potential residency, then how is that actual process of inquiry going first, right? So am I getting good feedback? Am I getting good responses? Am I feeling like this is a positive environment? So I think that you need to do your due diligence in asking a lot of questions, going and looking a lot of places, as much as you can get an idea of what's available for care for your loved one. And then once you determine that you think you're going into a certain place, I would say just take the time to think it through, and don't be afraid to ask important questions, because this is a really important decision that you're making about where your loved one is going to live. And then once they are actually moved in, I would say that we go often as family members. I think my mom has probably 4 to 5 visits a week. I think there's hardly a day goes by when there's a family member or a friend that drops in, and I think that's really good and helpful for her as well. And so, we're there often. So we observe a lot and just stay on top of things as you would for anybody that that needs your care, right? To make sure they're in a good place. So I'd say stay connected and connect all the way through from start to finish in terms of investigating where you're going to be, where they're going to be, and then staying close to the process all the way along. I'd just like to say that I think at the village I have encountered some very special staff members along our journey who have taken extra time to make sure that I understand things, that I'm comfortable with things, how things are going with my mom. I find that there are some really special people working there, and that gives me a great deal of comfort to know that there are people at the village in those key positions that are interacting with my mom, that I have observed have a great level of commitment and care in the job they do. They're not just showing up for work. They put their heart into the work that they do, and they care about the people that they're caring for. And that's the best thing you could ask for.
For more information about this community, you can visit their profile at comfortlife.ca.